Hello and welcome. This is the second part of a three-part series on how to build Eliza plugins. In our previous video, we covered actions, and in this video, we will be looking into evaluators. Now, evaluators are one of the most powerful features when it comes to building Eliza plugins. Now, evaluators are really components that enable the agents to process conversations, extract knowledge, and build understanding over time. By the end of this tutorial, you'll understand what evaluators are and how they work, and how to build a simple evaluator. Before we dive into evaluators, we sort of need to understand how they fit into the entire plugin architecture. Now, actions define how the agent responds to messages. Evaluators, on the other hand, process conversations after these responses. Now, this creates a very interesting cycle where actions generate responses based off of current understanding, while evaluators, on the other hand, analyze these interactions and build new understanding. All right, now let's take a look at the core structure of an evaluator interface. So right here, we have a name property, which is a string, followed by similes, which is an array of strings. Next up, we have description, which is also a string, followed by example, which is an array. We have our handler method, our validate method, and our always run boolean. And now that we have a high level understanding of how evaluators work, let's get into actually building one. All right, so welcome. Right now, we will get into building out our evaluator for this project. So before we get into it, we want to have like a quick recap. In our first video, we built out an action that rolls a dice. So when we insert a prompt into our agent to roll a dice, the action rolls a dice and then gives us a response, which is the number that was gotten from the die roll. So in this video, we will be building out a rather simple evaluator that analyzes the die rolling pattern and builds statistical knowledge over time, and then adds a observatory anecdote into the response for the action when we roll a new dice. Now, as it stands, I think our evaluator is active. It is. I'm going to go on ahead and ask the agent to roll a dice. All right, so right now, in the initial first roll, every time we roll a dice without the evaluator functional, all we get is the dice, the number, and then like a comment of how many times we've rolled a dice so far. And we've rolled the dice 86 times. That's a lot of times, right? And so right now I'm going to ask the agent to do that again. And now we have something different. We have a little fun fact here. And this fun fact is derived from our evaluator after analyzing all of the last 20 times we've had to roll a dice, and it's getting out an average number of all the dice we've rolled. So, we've gotten different numbers between 1 to 25, and it's added that up and averaged it out. And so here we have a simple average of 11.7, and it says in this conversation, your rolls have averaged to 11.7. Now, this is a unique use case for evaluators. The core function of evaluators is to gain knowledge in the interaction, and then inform the agent on how to navigate further conversations as it progresses. In our case, it just provides information. It provides a piece of information to the user. Well, it provides a piece of information to the agent, and then the agent takes that and sends that to the user. And so that is what our evaluator does right here, right now. And now that I've shown you the demo, we're going to go on ahead and build out this evaluator from scratch, and I'm going to walk you through the code and everything in between. So the first thing we're going to do will be to bring in these name imports from the Eliza call module. These will be useful as we build out our evaluator. Obviously, I have Cursor giving me a few suggestions, but we'll just ignore those for now. And then write out the name of our evaluator, similes description. And in our case, we want our evaluator to always run, so we'll leave that to true. The next thing we're going to do will be to write out our validate logic. This is where a lot of the validation happens. So evaluators typically run after an action runs successfully. As long as the evaluator has been imported into our index.ts file, our validator method looks out to validate if this particular evaluator should run. So we're looking for a bunch of things to determine if this evaluator should run. So initially, we started by console logging this to be sure that our evaluator is actually running. And we're looking for a bunch of things. One of them is to look for text that includes, I rolled the dice for you and got this. So basically a response from the agent that looks like this. Once we see this response, we know that, okay, this validates this requirement, and then we can proceed to running our handler function, which is the next step in this process. So our handler function is also pretty straightforward. We are making use of agent runtime, memory, and state. We put up a console log to be sure that our handler method is running, because oftentimes, even though the validate method runs, it never really gets to the handler method. So we need to console log certain things to be sure that it actually gets to that point. We get recent messages that we need to analyze. We then extract the dice roll by doing a bunch of things. I'm looking for text in the memory that includes this. We filter through text that includes I roll a dice for you and got. We map that and then we filter through a bunch of, and then we run a filter through that again. If we happen to run our filter and get a response of 0, this obviously means that we've not interacted with the agent or made use of the action. We are going to send a result that says no dice roll to analyze. Once that is done, we're going to go ahead and calculate the statistics. We're going to take the total numbers, which is the response of the dice that has been rolled, and divide that by the length of times we've asked the agent to roll a dice. So what that means is 2 plus 5 plus 10 plus 20 and so on and so forth. And we divide that by 20 messages or 5 messages or 10 times we've asked the agent to roll a dice. That gives us our average. So once we have our average, we go on ahead and store the analysis in memory. The next thing to do will be to set a flag indicating the evaluator is active. This was important because at some point when I was building this out, it will get to a point where even though I was running tests and I disabled the evaluator here to comment the evaluator out, it'll still run as though the evaluator was active, even though it wasn't actually evaluating anything. But because of all of the data it has stored in memory, the action will still pull forth that data and also get that response from the agent back to the user. And I didn't really want that. So we need a flag that checks to see if the evaluator is actually active in this room. And if that is true, based off of this comment or lack thereof, then we make use of the function of the evaluator. Otherwise, we just give the user a response without the evaluator being active. We also store the last process message ID. This also is another way to validate if the evaluator is active. And then we return the dice roll pattern that has been analyzed. The statistics object has roll count, the average, the highest, the lowest, and the rows. We then wrap all of this with the examples array that we will leave empty. We save that, export default. I think this was introduced newly into Eliza v2. But it does nothing too crazy here. So we're going to save this. So that is a full code rundown of how the evaluator, so that is a code rundown of what comes together to build out our evaluator. We're going to head back to our index file. We seem to be having an error here. All right, so we fixed the error in our index file. I'm going to save this. I'm going to import the evaluator into the evaluators array, save that, close our server, build out our program, and then start our Eliza server. Okay, so we've started, and I will just close this as well. So initially, when we roll a dice, even after enabling our evaluator, we still get the plain simple response. This is a function of our flag indicator. We need to trigger the action before this kicks in. This is a bug that I'm working on, hopefully to fix. So it is a much seamless experience with the user. However, once we ask the agent to roll a dice the first time, after enabling our evaluator, we ask it to roll another one, basically just going on with the interaction. And then, we get the good stuff where it tells us our average roll, and it just adds this little fun fact based off of the analysis it's done. And we're able to get this observation straight to the user. So what evaluators do will be to analyze the entire interaction, build a knowledge base, if you will, store all of that in memory, and then work with the action to sort of deliver a much better agentic performance to the user. And that is it. This is everything we have put together to write the evaluator that does this. I know it might have been a lot to take in, so feel free to watch this a couple times and leave comments if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to respond to them. I'll be sure to leave the link to the GitHub repository in the comments below. And I hope this was helpful. In our next and final video, we will be looking into providers. Providers provide a bit more context into how the agent should respond. I'm super excited for that, and I'll be happy to share that with you when it's out. But until then, thank you for watching. Feel free to give this video a like, share it with friends, and see you in the next one.